Also joining us, senior journalist and former BBC editor Nicholas Nugent at the moment. Thanks so much, Nicholas, for making time for us. Britain has been mired in a cost of living crisis. Real wages have flatlined for a decade. Prices have spiraled for utilities and food. I think it's fair to say that Rishi Sunak will be bidding farewell to number 10 Downing Street, as per the exit poll projections.
Well, yes, indeed. It looks like it's going to be a very substantial victory for the Labour Party, as your correspondent was saying. No surprises there. Our exit polls, I know you have right to be suspicious of exit polls, but so far the 30 or so results we've had so far rather bear out the predictions. So we're looking like a massive Labour victory, not quite what you would call a supermajority, but not far short of that. So really quite a stunning result. Certainly one of the more exciting general elections I can remember because of the size of the victory that it looks as if the Labour Party will get.
Right. In fact, it's going to be the only Labour landslide after Tony Blair. But is it a fair assessment that Rishi Sunak has been left trying to coax a disillusioned Conservative base just to turn up at the ballot box to prevent what he wants will be a Labour supermajority in the House of Commons, but he's so far failed to do so?
Well, yes, indeed. He had an uphill battle to fight, and you could argue that he or the Conservative Party are suffering for the sins of the previous leaders, Boris Johnson and Liz Truss in particular. But we've had 14 years of Conservative rule with 5 different leaders. And I feel a bit sorry for Rishi Sunak. He got the short end of the straw. He is having to fight against all the odds to win the election for Conservatives. It's not going at all well. But let me make another point. This is not just a straight fight between Conservative and Labour. It may look like that, but 2 significant things that have shown up during the early results, and we're only less than 5 hours into the results, so we haven't got very many results. One is the way that the Reform Party, which is another right-wing party, have undermined the Conservative vote. So it's not all Labour capturing seats from the Conservatives, but they're right-wing extremists, the Nigel Farage party, if you understand what I mean there, really quite an extreme right-wing party closely associated with Brexit, taking us out of the European Union. Now, that party is doing very well in terms of vote share. They've only so far won 1 seat, and the prediction is they won't
13.
win more than about 13, or they may win up to 13, perhaps I should put it like that. So the Reform Party is quite a significant factor in this election, but also the other smaller party, the Liberal Democrats, who are strong in my area, for example, of west of England, they're doing much better than expected. So I think we should take note of the other parties, Reform, the Liberal Democrats, and the regional parties like the Scottish Nationalist Party. So they're all taking votes, well, not all taking votes from the Conservative, but they are affecting the outcome overall. So whilst I don't think there's any doubt that Labour will win with a substantial majority, we need, or at least I need, to look closely at the regional issues and the extent to which other parties play a role. In my constituency, for example, if the Conservative is to lose, be defeated, it'll be by the Liberal Democrat, not by the Labour,
right,
because Labour are way, way behind.
So in terms of the Lib Dems, it seems that the gimmicky campaign has indeed worked out. But Nigel Farage, Nicholas, it's not totally unexpected. It was predicted that the Reform UK is going to chip away the Conservative vote share. But it's interesting to see, as opposed to Europe, France, especially with Marine Le Pen, the UK was veering more towards the left. But the resurgence of the Reform UK party, it does indicate that there is somewhere an audience for the far right.
Yes, you're right. But I think I wouldn't. I mean, you're right to be drawing the comparison with France, Italy, the Netherlands, which have all gone to the right. Nobody could say that Britain is going to the right, it's very much going to the left. But the interesting thing about the Reform Party, it's a new party. It's just won its first member of parliament. But yesterday, the prediction was they would get one seat in parliament. Now, after the exit poll, we're told they could get up to 13 seats. So that's what's interesting here. But you can't, they're a long way from power, the right wing in Britain. So we really are countering the trend that you've seen in those other three countries I mentioned. Britain is going to the left. There's no question about that. Right. Labour will be the alternative government, will be the new government. But those of us who watch these things closely do take an interest in how Reform are doing, which shows that there is, I mean, it's the damage Reform are doing to the Conservative Party that is of interest, because it's not all Labour taking the votes from Conservatives, it's Reform as well. So they are being attacked from both sides, you could say, and they're not doing very well.
Right. In fact, Rishi Sunak has staked much of his manifesto and his campaign on the controversial plan to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda. Immigration is rising despite post-Brexit promises, though, that this would fall. You think Rishi has failed to deliver on some crucial promises, and that the British public has now lost faith in the Tory promises?
Well, I think that's definitely the case, yes. He's been promising this Rwanda scheme to deter illegal immigrants ever since he took power, and he has failed to deliver. Not a single person, or maybe one single person, has been deported to Rwanda. But the scheme wasn't popular. The scheme wasn't popular partly because it seemed rather anti-humanitarian, and Indeed. Because it was challenged by the courts, both in Britain and potentially in Europe as well. It doesn't mean that Keir Starmer, the expected new prime minister, has all the answers. Far from it. I don't think he has, but he'll take a different sort of approach, as he's made quite clear. Then he will try and ease the scheme for legal immigration, so that people can be processed, can apply to come to Britain rather than sail over on small boats. But let me just say, illegal immigration is only a part of the problem, because the Conservatives have come undone also because of legal immigration. What they call net immigration has been well into the 700,000s. Yes. That's the excess of incomers, legal incomers, over those going to live abroad for one reason or another. So that's another problem. And that's all to do with the economy. It's to do with the demand for certain types of worker in Britain that we don't seem to have, yes. Care workers in particular, and fruit pickers. And it's also to do with students coming and perhaps bringing their families. So all these issues of the economy, you can't just stop legal immigration. You have to adjust the levers in a number of ways. And you were saying earlier that the result of this election is very much about the state of the economy. Yes, and this is how the state of the economy plays on to the whole immigration debate. Very, very complex issues there. But at least Keir Starmer knows that this is something he has to give early attention to, or he will risk coming undone for the very same reasons that Rishi Sunak has.
Yes, indeed. Also, Nicholas, before we wrap, you know, Rishi Sunak's proposal for mandatory national service for 18-year-olds, you think that likely hurt the Tories in retrospect?
I'm not sure it hurt it. It was a bit of a gimmick. It won support in some areas. We knew it would never happen because here he was presenting it for the first time during the election campaign, and it was widely expected that Conservatives would lose. So it didn't seem like a serious issue. I think perhaps more serious, you might look at the whole issue of defence spending. Conservatives were committed to increasing defence spending. Remember, we have a major war on in Europe, which threatens even Britain. I mean, it threatens Western Europe. So there's a great concern about security of the state. So Rishi Sunak came up wanting to increase defence spending from a little over 2% to 3% of GDP. and Labour could do nothing but agree. The only difference was they wouldn't put a timescale on it. So security is, frankly, a more relevant concern politically to the people of Britain and the political parties than the issue of national service. That, as I say, we haven't had national service in Britain since 1959. And it's not going to come back soon. So I don't think that made much impact. I think your previous point about immigration in general and illegal immigration in particular, those were much more relevant factors in bringing the Conservatives down.